You know, they're encouraged to.
Why don't you use my table and get this done?
I know it's I'd be like, oh, I don't even know his last name.
Oh, yeah.
My 28-year-old son is there, so he's gonna be.
Yeah.
Hey, there he is. All right, hey, man.
No, they have that.
Yes, it is. How about my ticket to see it?
Yeah, for a little bit.
It's a nice event. It goes to like.
No, sir, but did,
See a lot of nice important
Good
people.
evening, everyone. It is 6:00 p.m. and we will call the Hudsonville Public Schools Board of Education work session for April 22nd to order. We're going to begin our evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. All could please rise. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First up is approval of our agenda. I can have a motion.
I'll move that.
So movement from Mark with support from Andrew. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. This evening, it's my understanding we do not have any visitors or hearing of people present, so we will move on to our discussion items. And first up is our Bauer and Early Childhood Center furniture bid recommendations. Mr. Briggs.
Before Mr. Briggs starts, I would like to say I appreciate the work that furniture is a heavy conversation. You don't think it is, you think you need chairs and tables. It's a lot bigger than that, so thanks to Pat and all the team that worked together to get this done, so go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Van Jack. It is, we call it a labor of love. Labor of love. So this recommendation is from our, like I say, our furniture consultant that works for GMB, Katie Rodewald. She did a bang-up job on this project, and this, just to summarize the financial piece of it, there's actually 2 phases with the Early Childhood Center that matches up with the construction phases. We need some furniture, basically for the fall opening, so we're gonna have that delivered in the summer. And then we have a phase 2 that's gonna be closed out in basically October, November. We'll get that furniture. And then Bauer's, we need all the Bauer furniture this summer. So it's 2 different schools in 2 phases, and this is the total amount that we're asking the board to authorize tonight. There's a lot of detail. If you like detailed budgets, there are detailed budget pages for both these projects in there, and it does total that award amount. So I'm not gonna cover this in an extreme amount of detail in terms of the budgets, but the way it's laid out, each room, each space has its own budget for the projects. Just a little bit about the process, because we've done this with several schools now in just in this one bond project. But let me get to my next page before I start going. But we basically, and a lot of the people in this room have been in those meetings for other buildings, but for each of ECC and Bauer, we had 3 separate meetings, and normally we do that in at least 5, sometimes 8 per building to cover all the bases. And the reason is, these schools, no mark against the other schools, but these schools were just ready. They had their research done. They looked at the other schools, in particular the 5-6, brand 100% new furniture in that building. So they'd gone and done their homework. They'd looked at things, and they also looked at Allward has a new music room, new art room. places like that and looked at that furniture. So they came ready, and that just made our work so much. So I want to, shout out to the ECC and Bauer staff for really having their mark. We hit the ground running in those meetings. It was not a lot of, what do you think about this? Because they came prepared. We didn't always go in that direction, but they had their work done. And then Katie leveraged the furniture consultant. She leveraged in the office areas. We've got standards now for district equipment, like for teacher desks, for office equipment. We didn't have to go and plow that field again, which was really, really helpful. It was really, really helpful to have that done. And things that Dr. Vanderjack led as part of the teacher, where the teacher work wall is. Having that done just locks things in ahead of time, so we didn't have to explore that again. Just go to in each building. So this is Bauer. I know some of you are more familiar with Bauer than others, but this is basically from, I don't know who can see my little cursor up there, but this back, it's the bottom right hand corner of the large floor plan. This is the new addition. I'll go over here. This is a drill down. This is the music room. This is a new music room, new art room, new restrooms, which are really, really important to that school. Doesn't have a lot of restrooms in it. The new gymnasium, and this space in here, the design team, different design team, but the building design team put a lot of time into leveraging this space to put as many small group meeting rooms in here, and the building staff is really, really excited about this space as well. So just when it comes to this art room, music room, it's pretty standard. Like, we're getting to district standards, so there's not a lot of new here, and we're not building, they get tired of us saying it, but we're not building this space or equipping this space for a person, we're equipping it for a program. So when people move from building to building, they have consistent furniture and a consistent layout, consistent program. This gym office looks so much like this, the same materials that we put in most of the offices in the connector. We worked, Jordan Beal worked really, really hard in his team on office furniture. Didn't have to do that again over here. We've just been leveraging that work over time. And another piece, if you look at that $376,000 budget, both buildings are getting 100% new cafeteria tables. So that's more than 25% of the total budget in each. So that's a nice thing for just the building in general. Yes.
So that space is not new, right? That's the existing space, we're just putting new furniture in, new tables in.
It got a refresh. I mean,
Okay.
we're really gonna touch
Okay.
the surfaces there, repaint,
Okay, got it.
and it's gonna be, it gets a refresh.
Yep, got it.
It gets lots of stuff that excites us, but new heating unit here,
Okay.
new ventilation unit, so, yeah. But it was part of the construction scope to give that a refresh.
Got it, okay.
Good question. Anything else on Bauer?
Pat, what happens to the current tables that are used in cafeteria? Do we just discard them, or do we give them away, or do we save them, or?
So what's worth keeping for us, we'll disperse those. It's kind of similar to what we did with the projectors. When we went through the high school and middle schools, we took what was worth keeping and pushed them to basically the elementaries. And then we'll sell what we can. We've been using Bittergy to get rid of equipment and get something for them, or the rest of them we'll just scrap them.
Some have parts that we can use in other buildings. You remember the old tables like that had seats, the plastic ones, the kids would never rock on the crack. We use those seats and replace them differently.
I'm glad you brought that up, Dr. Vanderjack. Now, this This table, our other buildings are really enjoying it because it can be used for adult seating at night. It flips up and it's been pretty popular for the buildings that have that style. Any other questions on Bauer? So ECC, the spaces we're touching, you know, this is the total floor plan over here to the left. But to drill in, this space, I don't know who can see my cursor at all, but this space here used to be the wrestling room.
Wrestling in here,
Yep.
and this was the cafeteria up there with the kitchen, where the kitchen doesn't move. This turns into 2 classrooms, the cafeteria and a motor room, is that right? And then these turn into classrooms that would have cafeteria. So this is going up, right in this area here.
So when I was in that building years ago, where the cafeteria is gonna be again, that used to be the cafeteria, right, more or
Yeah,
less?
that's correct. And then it turned into wrestling, now it's going back to half cafeteria.
Yeah.
So the
Half the size.
the serving area, the prep area, the prep area is always was.
Yeah.
We always prep, and
Yep.
we had a hallway built here, you'll see it down there. Well, I don't have as built, so that, even one on the left. But there was a hallway here, going right along here, and it went out through these doors, and wrestling was on this side over here. So, this just shows the layout for the new cafeteria tables. This space over here, as Dr. Vanderjack said, we'll show you in a couple pictures. It is gonna be, full of early childhood furniture. And this space over here is gonna have a lot of furniture in it. This is their motor mobility room, they call it. All kinds of furniture. This space right here is gonna be, right now is primarily locker rooms, and they're gonna get out of that. They're gonna have a conference room, and this is a itinerant, used right now by a district psychologist. And then if I went over here, zoom back out, this space down here is where we're adding exterior restroom capacity that the tennis courts, pickleball courts can use.
Yeah, so this is the door that exists right now. Well, now you got technology, then these are bathrooms at the gym right here, used to ECC. These are restrooms that we're gonna put exterior doors here, so that some of our community members that use pickleball can be more of a partner in that. Understand it's a district expense, but, they've been great to work with, so we're trying to figure out a way to, kind of figure that out.
So on to some pages. I just wanted to orient everybody to what we were doing. The conference room office standard, like I said, the work the high school staff did on the conference rooms and for conference tables, office furniture, we are following that right down to a T. It's worked really well. We did the same thing for the 5-6 building. We patterned the conference and office spaces off the work that the high school did. Now, all bets are off when it comes to an early childhood classroom. So how will they use it? All the things that go in here, they use them every day. Every day the kids in that classroom. So this is the 2 classrooms. This space used to be the cafeteria. And there are lots of specialty things in here that I learned a lot about. Cool little stuff over here. You crawl through it, but these are very important. And when you're looking through your packet, if it has this over here, because there were so many things and we wanted to consolidate it into one graphic, that's on the right side and the left side. So it's not like it's only going on one side, it's going in both. The multi-purpose room, as Dr. Vanderjack was talking about, this is not gonna be a big running space. It's not gonna be like, this is where we go for indoor recess. for kids. The building has a decent sized gymnasium where they can do those things, but this will be a lot of educational movement, motor skills. And then the difference here, and you'll see this for if you get in the detailed budget, there were just some scope items that we really don't have a buying contract to get. So these things are gonna be owner scoped, and that is $6,950. 6,950 of those items that we're gonna purchase, that we're gonna buy them on our own. We're just asking for that authority tonight, so it's in one tidy recommendation. And again, cafeteria, standing tables, these flip up, split apart, so they can be used for, adults to sit in for other presentations, when they have parent meetings and things like that. We still have a little bit of work to do with finishes, but we have enough budget built in to cover a range of colors. So we still have a meeting left to go, but we don't need those decisions made to get authority, to ask you for authority to buy. And that did cover quite a bit, so any questions?
Pat, the technology department, I see that wasn't changed at all. Is that because it's sufficient for future needs, or we needed more space for the other stuff instead?
You're talking about the actual.
Yeah.
So it's a great question about not only their functioning as a department, but also storage. A lot of times, laptops a good example.
Sure.
5 years ago, we didn't have 7,000 laptops in the district, so it looks different for them when it comes to storage and things. We've made some changes to how we do things with our laptops.
Mhm.
The department itself would love more storage and more space. But for now, it's gonna be
Okay.
just fine. We've commandeered some locker rooms that were no longer used at all.
Mhm.
So they've added additional storage room, a little bit better free flowing, with what they have, conference room and so forth. But we met with them too, and we went through the
Good.
design, and what we
Okay.
really had a budget to do, and it was to focus on wrestling's out, converting that, and really working with the littles over there, the kids.
Thank you.
Good question.
The space, we're knocking out, we're taking out some, cause there's a lot of showers in here, this facility that aren't being used. So this space that's just north of that, new conference room, the conference room we're renovating, they're gonna have shelves in here, as Dr. Vanderjagt said, this will be better storage than they've got right now. Right now, they're just throwing things in basically old locker rooms. So this will be more functional for them.
Pat, this amount, I'm assuming is within our bond allocation, this is within the budget.
Yes,
Okay.
it is. Good
And this will
question.
come to our May board meeting for support. You mentioned
Correct.
a couple times for approval tonight.
Yeah, there's no approval
May.
tonight, but yes.
That's what I thought.
So just a quick question on some of the finishes. It looks to me like a lot of this is gonna be interchangeable with some of the color schemes in some of our other facilities. I'm assuming that was kind of the plan or the hope?
Well, there's a lot more, I would say, since we did the branding work, we are really pushing things back toward our brand colors. You'll see a lot that's prevalent here.
Yeah.
So it's not like everything has to be navy and gold, but, it's far more in that direction than, I would say, there's some buildings before we came out of it and you didn't know if it was Granville, what other districts, so
It was always the current in color that you focused
Yeah.
on versus something that back. And I think, and for the practical sense of that, again, if you have to swap chairs or swap whatever, it's nice to know that at least going forward, we're not gonna be like, oh, here's that ugly orange chair in the midst of that sort of thing. So I guess I'm thinking practically.
yes.
And a question about the flooring, is that also similar to like this, where I'm assuming you can take pieces out if there's a piece that's damaged or terribly
Yep.
stained? Okay,
Same with what you see at the high school, the
Yep.
offices, the choir room.
okay.
If we were to do this floor, it would just look like this, except a little bit more of a blue tint to it.
Okay, good.
Yeah, when you get into this So the carpet question,
Mhm,
so this little check line right here,
mhm,
north of that is carpet.
yep,
Below that is, real similar to, we call VCT, but vinyl tile.
so there might be food on that section.
Oh, yeah, well, with the sink up here, yeah.
Yeah.
And then, as Dr. Vanderjack said, this'll be real similar, we've had really good luck with the sport surface that was in South, that's the first time we used it. We've had really good luck with that surface, so we've used it again at our, not Georgetown, but, Forest Grove, Bauer, and the same thing with one here.
Pat, when we're budgeting for like the toys and those types of things, how long do we expect those things to last typically?
Budgeting
I assume
for,
they're gonna get some pretty good usage.
budgeting for which?
Like these multi-purpose rooms that have like the slides and the climbing
Yeah.
walls and the tunnel that you crawl through.
So items like this don't, I mean, these don't last, these don't have the life that a classroom chair does. They just don't.
Yeah.
And it's more 5 to 10.
Okay.
And our classroom chairs, well, we've got chairs that are over 20 years old and they just last. As long as we keep them clean. So they don't have the life of,
I didn't think that they would.
Yeah.
We factor that in.
Any other questions for Pat? All right, we look forward to seeing this in May.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
Dr. Vanderjack, Superintendent goal update.
Thank you. So I just want to give an update. It's now April. We talked about this earlier in the calendar year, but I like to give an update maybe a couple times a year, just where these goals fall. So I'll just go through them one by one. Please ask questions either at the end or interrupt me at any point. The testing goal is to really look at our state and local level when it comes to testing and refocus some of our energy on our testing strategies. To really try to remove some of the noise, if you will, from testing, to see if our kids' scores are really based on the academic performance or there are other things, connectivity, interference in the school day. So you'll notice a month or so ago, the board approved a different testing schedule for the high school. That's coming out of some of this work. Amy, Craig Steenstra, Kathy, Lindsay Bullhouse, we all met to have deeper dialogue, and then I met with all the building principals at the secondary and elementary to really dig into this deeper. So those are some things that we've done, and quite frankly, I'll give you more update on this goal when we get our test results back, because we're not quite done with testing. The M-STEP is still going on for the littles in the next 7 weeks. High school retest is almost done, then we go from there. And we'll give you just some information that we do have some things we're working through with the state testing. The work keys assessment that we give as part of the high school testing cycle does fall during spring break next year. So we're gonna ask our juniors to come home from spring break on that Thursday, and we're not doing that. So we'll have an opportunity.
My daughter won't be there.
I know. We have an opportunity for makeup to go through, and that's just the one test. The rest of it, we have a window to do. So we're trying to work with our legislators and saying, listen, can we do a window with this also? Go from there. Second goal was talk about parent feedback. A lot of this had to do with the change in our non-homestead coming up. I did have meetings with every one of our PTCs. I know some of you attended a couple of those meetings. I did have I finished all of the staff meetings to go through that also just last week. On this note also is like getting feedback from some of our constituents, and Ann set up for Ann and I to go to all the buildings, do listening tours with the staff. It was a voluntary thing, just talk about the building, the climate, what's going on. We got some great information. We're still digging into that. There was one thing that I wanted to do that I've done before when it comes to the millage, a bond issue, and that was home visits. And that people could come to somebody's house, and it was more of a community type conversation. Tried to reach out and have that, it just didn't work, but that's, the non-homestead's different than a potential bond issue, because that's when we really wanted to start digging into what are some other things that people would like to see. We heard some of this stuff when Ann and I did listening tours, people asked, staff asking about air conditioning and about different facilities and upgrades and paint and ceiling tiles, so we got some good information, with those listening tours. I will say that there is one home visit that is still scheduled, and it's at my house. The HEF under Soray has one of their auction items is dinner at my house, so we'll see how that works out. It's always a great conversation. Last year was a good time. I learned a lot about, what people truly know and hear about the district. It's a good conversation.
Have you heard much outside of your listening tours as far as still any confusion about the homestead and how it's set up with the 18 mills and up to 2 mills? What have you been hearing, from your?
Yeah, I've not heard a tremendous amount. I've received about 5 or 6 phone calls from citizens that wanted more information. And when I talked to them within 5 minutes, like, oh, not even 5 minutes, I get it, it makes sense. It's confusing when you read it to think it's 18 mils and another 18 mils. It's not, and I explained to them how, if you look at the second one, it literally generates $0. It's really just if it drops below 18, keep in mind, if the millage rate never drops below 18, that second ballot item is irrelevant. But if it does drop, that keeps it up at 18. So, I would say I have not received a phone call or a conversation with somebody that, once I explained it to them, they were very supportive of it. Let's just leave it at that.
I thought your email last week was good, clear, succinct, tight, there it is, yeah, without reading all ballot numbers, so.
Yeah. Good.
I have had some questions from neighbors.
Yeah.
And again, depending on how much individuals understand about how taxes are assessed, directly relates to how well they understand it. And again, that's no fault of our own. I mean, we can't control how taxes are assessed and whether it's a principal residence and whether there's the uncapping and all of that. But you're right, I think the key being that nothing's going to change. The only thing that might change is if the state changes something because of the taxable value, then we'd have to make an adjustment to make sure we continue to get 18 mills. That's the best way I can explain it if you don't understand the tax system. Would that still be accurate? I wanna make sure that that's an accurate representation.
Yeah, I think for us it would be an issue, but think about the districts that have a 10 or 20 year non-homestead. That's a big ask for them. Ours being every 4 years, or depending on 4 or 5, 1, however it is, we have a little bit more opportunity for risk, if that makes sense. But I do think if there's a drastic change in how property taxes are collected, or if you have some that there are property taxes, that will change the whole school funding structure completely.
Yes.
And then we'll have to come back with,
Yes.
what does that mean for your constituents, and is that a 1.5-year process before that goes into play? It's not gonna be a quick turnaround, or something like that, which I don't see it happening, but I've seen more interesting things.
Yes.
Good question. The diversity and advocacy, I do want to thank Andy and the entire committee's work on that. We continue to have dialogue. She's going to give an update in a little bit on what that looks like. I know the board's been very supportive. A couple board members, I know 3 or 4 of you have been at a few of those meetings. It's a good dialogue with our community and with those involved in the committee. We've been giving monthly updates at work sessions because we're getting to the point of hopefully making a recommendation to the board. And when we get there, whether it's in June, July, or early in the fall, we'll have it ready to go from there. Construction updates, one of our biggest goals was to really try to look at our facilities themselves and what does that look like from a community use. So working with Rebecca Fabiano, and what does that look like when we finally get those open for community use. We're still new, we're still finishing up a lot of projects at the high school. A lot of our focus may have shifted to Park Elementary or finishing up Bauer, or we talked a lot about ECC tonight. We still have a lot going on at the high school to try to finish that project up. Quite frankly, to get ready for graduation, because we want to make sure things work. So we're finishing that up. So that's been a heavy lift. I do, not only our building principals have been phenomenal with doing this construction work, but Pat, we talk daily about construction work, and we have meetings still every other week with all of our construction friends to talk about the technology that's being installed or not, what does that look like, the actual construction itself, timelines, all of those things. And then last but not least, the, communication, working with the board, working on relationships with constituents and so forth. One example of how we're progressing through that is hopefully the board continuing to get their updates. But I know, Ken and Mark and I had a chance to go to the ISD, and meet about some cognitive coaching strategies and dialogue discussions, and that's just part of this whole overarching theme of kind of building that connection between the community and the board. So that's a quick update. I'll do another one maybe in the fall, or if something changes drastically, we'll have more updates, and then questions on, all right?
Back to goal one, not right now, when you do it in the fall, but, obviously testing is an outcome of everything else we're doing upstream, right? So, can we leap that into SOAR goals that are relevant to this as well, do you know what I'm saying? You don't know what I'm saying?
No, I'm sorry.
Like academic
I'm listening, I'm trying to,
Like academic achievement,
Right.
is that what you're thinking through, like what other
So
4 or
you-
5 goals?
Yeah, so you're looking at testing methods as well as outcomes?
so the goal is to try to look at some of the testing methods so that we can focus, our efforts on the achievement level first. So,
Mhm.
the methods first, that we know that we've removed the noise,
Mhm.
so that if right now we can say there's an issue in, I don't know, 4th graders going to 5th grade, or 5th graders going to 6th grade.
Mhm.
We don't know if that's true or not, because there's these other factors.
Mhm.
We're trying to remove those factors, so at the end of the day, we can say, we're missing a standard. Maybe it's in reading, or maybe it's in math. We're missing a standard at this grade level. Now we can really focus on that content area. But right now, the question is, we talked last year about it, and first thing we went to, yeah, but the testing, the laptops didn't work on day one, so we don't know how really the kids are doing. So we tried to remove some of that noise. I don't know if that answers your question. I don't think it does.
No, but I think I know the answer already. So, it does overlap with SOAR,
Yes.
and that's really where I'm going. is
Yes.
the overlap with SOAR. So, I can look at SOAR, I can look at this and go, this relates to this relates to this, goal in this way, so, yeah.
That's the intent, I can't read the goals from here, but they're over there.
Yeah.
But yes, it overlaps heavily with the curriculum.
Yeah, that was my point.
Yeah.
I wanna make note of the annual evaluation cycle that we have, that came out of our process. And, I noticed in April, which is right now, the informal update from Dr. Vanderjack, and I appreciate that. Our next scheduled, of this process is June, where we will have a formal discussion. At that point in time, I'm gonna be making more formal statements on what I see with this annual evaluation cycle. And, I noticed that under the notes, it says, do we want to do this in a work session, or do we want to do it at a board meeting? I would suggest doing it at a work session where we can have more discussion, back and forth, instead of at the board meeting in June. But I'm just following this schedule that we had as a board approved and decided we were gonna follow. So I just wanna make sure everybody understands and is on the same page with it.
Can you clarify what you first said? I mean, obviously, I know that we did the June 30 as having sort of a halfway point for that, but you said something about making comments, or what did you say initially?
It said, in April, we have an informal update given to us by Dr. Vanderjack. In June, we have a formal discussion as a board talking about it, and that's when I'm gonna save my remarks and stuff for that, as opposed to right now. And if I have any other questions between now and then, I wanna get them to Dr. Vanderjack before that June, formal discussion, so. I'm just following what we had determined as a board that we were gonna do. And I've got copies of this if people need copies to be made. So I appreciate the fact that we're keeping with the schedule, and we did get the informal update today.
Okay, any other questions regarding the superintendent goal update?
Yeah, thanks for this, Doug. I would encourage on actually almost the last line on goal 5, to work to foster relationships between staff that have concerns with individual board members. I would hope you'd make that an ongoing goal. we've had, really unprecedented concerns between staff and board. I'd just like to have that be a real ongoing goal, in the future.
For the board as well as the superintendent.
Oh, definitely.
Any other feedback?
Dr. Vanderjack, are you comfortable with the timelines that we have?
Those are draft timelines that were created by, MASB, based on the old cycle for superintendents and evaluation. I would ask that the board truly evaluates. It's not a board approved process, and that there wasn't a vote on that. I think it was mentioned that maybe it was,
Sure.
it depends. I personally would say that MASB has a different cycle for evaluations that are now, it models what administrators, teachers, everybody else.
Right. For your goals, you have time, just going back to your goals specifically, not the evaluation timeline, but you have timelines for accomplishing these goals here. Are you comfortable still with, one of them's April 30, the last one? What do you think about that? Okay.
Well, I think that's the continuation, that it doesn't mean that it's done, it
Sure.
means that it didn't, I don't know how to start until June.
I guess I don't wanna diminish what this form says, cause we clearly talked about it. And I wanna make sure that we follow it. At the bottom it said, no, this is our first year following the specific format identified by the MASP and Jay Bennett will help to facilitate the process to ensure we are doing things correctly. And I was one of the ones who brought up the fact that after Nick and I went through the, program, the training last year in October, that a lot of the stuff that they identified, we had not as a board done. And so I wanted to make sure that we do follow through on this. And, that's the only reason I brought it up right now.
Did you want to see a resolution on this?
No, I don't think we need one.
Okay, all right. Okay.
No, I developed that to make sure that we are following
Right,
the process.
right.
So, Dr. Vanderjagt, I have not received any notification yet regarding the new evaluation process for superintendents.
Yeah, so it was in an MASB update, I think that came out a while ago. The process is, it's like everybody else's. You do if you're highly effective for the past how many years, then you go on it every other year, unless there's a reason not to. The only change is going to be that there's no highly effective area, it moves into effective. So you take that top quarter, if you will, and it turns into the top half. So the rubric itself will not have a highly effective category, it will have an effective ongoing, what are the three categories?
Oh,
Effective,
it's effective developing needs improvement.
yeah.
Sorry.
That's right.
I'll follow up with Jay to see for training and whatnot. Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions on goals? All right, Chromebook purchase recommendation, Mr. Briggs.
Yeah, thank you. It's actually two, we bundled them into, one report, but we're asking, previewing a recommendation that we're gonna be asking for formal approval on in May. The Chromebooks, the underlying Chromebooks themselves, 1,550 of them, cost $387,500. The associated licenses are $45,880. So really the Chromebook piece of the 513,000 is 433,000, and the rest are Apple iPads. We can do a little bit of purchasing procurement work with Chromebooks. Not a little bit, we can do as much as, we can do a lot. We did. We've looked at, for the last couple of years, we've made good use of something called MIDeal. It's a purchasing group that is really run by the Michigan Department of Ed. And school code now says that you can use MIDeal, you don't have to go to bidding. You can just use this program, state program, And that suffices, you, have satisfied your purchasing duties, due diligence. Well, our tech department, as many tech departments across the state, have used the REMC pricing. REMC, sometimes gets you, better price, better product. So that's what we're recommending to the board, is to use the REMC pricing, cause it does beat the, MIDO pricing. When it comes to Apple products, there is a price and you get it from Apple. So that's just the way it is. We're an app, quote unquote, Apple shop, have been for a while. And the device for the, young learners is the best device for them, with teachers and staff have, the Apple iPad meets that need. We replace those every 7 years. We've been getting 7 years out of them. And the Chromebooks, since we've gone 1-to-1, we buy, every year, we buy new Chromebooks for 5th graders and new Chromebooks for 9th graders. And that Chromebook is essentially assigned to them as 5th graders, even though it looks like it's in a charging cart, but it really is a Chromebook per kid. That follows that student through 8th grade, and same, 9th graders take theirs home. 5th graders don't take theirs home. So that's the highlights of in the background of this recommendation. Are there any questions?
Amy, I have a question for you on the iPads. Because when do they start doing testing on something with a mouse? Is that 1st grade?
First grade.
So do we still continue to feel that the iPad is the best thing yet for preschoolers, even though they have to eventually transition to a mouse?
We do, because of access to some of the instructional apps that are ease of use for the younger students.
Okay.
And keep in mind, the laptops that even the 1st graders are using for testing, let's say, like on benchmark assessments, not state assessments, are going to be a mouse similar to this. And so that would be the touchpad that they would be used to, whether it be touch on the screen or touch here.
Oh, so they would be able to do the touch of the screen. I just noticed, especially with my grandkids, the mouse is somewhat foreign to them, whether it be the side mouse or here. And so my only concern is, by continuing that, is that a disservice to them? But I understand what you're saying, because they don't necessarily have the capability of doing that in preschool, and then they would miss out on all the things the iPad has to offer.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think that once we get to state testing, that's not until 3rd grade. So some of the benchmark assessing that we do beginning in 1st grade consistently, that is mouse access, et cetera, like touchpad type of mouse.
Do we just overall kind of monitor how much screen time our students have per day?
Well, absolutely. I think that that's definitely a topic of conversation when we think about the instructional practices that we're using, why we're using the tools that we're using instructionally to support learning, and ensuring that that's a meaningful task, not just a busy task. And so there's considerable amount of work still going on around that dialogue and discussion because of the nature of how we went about moving to 1-to-1. Typically, districts have all of that lead-in time to build capacity and understanding about those instructional practices and some of the whys behind that. And we're still working to ensure there's consistency and clarity around purpose of instructional tech tasks.
Just so much research on screen time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah.
I'm just concerned.
Yes, and again, the task needs to be meaningful, not just busy work. What is the teacher doing with the outcome of what they're doing online and so forth, or within an app, let's say.
You know, in light of what, Barb just said, Amy, do we know how we compare with other districts as far as the percentage of screen time? I mean, it's probably pretty uniform.
My gut on that is that it is pretty uniform, because I think we're all trying to accomplish the same things around the same standards and building tech skills along the way as well as critical thinking about how we use tech as a learner and so forth. So
If they hit their quota during school, just have to tell the parents, no screen time.
no screen time tonight. Exactly. And again, I think a big piece of it comes back to the meaningful task, right? Not just playing games, but what is actually the teacher doing with the, whatever they're generating on the screen to note whether they're learning or not learning that particular task that they've been asked to do, so. Good questions.
Any other questions? Alright, moving on to our diversity advocacy committee update.
On the agenda, there are, the SOAR 5 goals that are linked to this topic. I think Stephanie gave me like the really sensitive microphone so everyone could hear me. So this connects to curriculum short-term 1, HR ongoing 1, special services short-term goal 4, and special services ongoing goal 1. So that's what those mean on your agenda. The first document that you'll see is the process document that we've looked at many times. This is just to share with you again that we're in the stage 4 of prioritizing suggestions and soliciting feedback. We've been working through a sorting document to really identify of the over 30 resources that we have pulled together in that brainstorming phase. Now, what seems to be topics or ideas that we really want to dig into further to best understand if we're going to recommend this. Do we really understand the details of each? And just talking about feasibility. If you look at the second document, I believe I showed this to you. If you'll remember at the last work session, I was having some vision difficulties, so I think I showed this to you on the screen. But this just says that at the top of the page, we're in phase 4. This is looking at soliciting feedback of others. The committee will narrow the field of suggestion. And again, this is looking to say, this is the problem of practice that we're trying to address with any and all of these solutions. And that our group has decided that these 6 factors are most important to us in terms of ranking each of the potential solutions to discuss what are our top 5, what are our top 10 recommendations, whatever we feel is an appropriate group of recommendations, knowing that our goal is to meet both short-term and long-term needs, right? So we understand when we're looking at addressing something this large in scope, there's probably a lot of ideas out there that can be a great short-term start, but may not be a long-term sustainable effort. So we're looking at both of those things. The group will come back together. This is the 3rd version of this criteria matrix, and we'll talk about what everyone thinks about this. And before we start using it, of course, we'll vote to make sure we have consensus that, yes, this is the matrix we wish to use. In our last meeting, we discussed 5 potential options that were ranked highest by the group, and then in our next meeting, we'll dive into any further recommendations that the group wants to know more about. And we'll also discuss if we wish to gain additional feedback other than some informal means like tonight's conversation, right? So if you had any feedback for us in terms of the process or the criteria or the decision-making protocol, we'd love to hear that. At this time, we haven't started to use this, right? We're just agreeing on what's the tool we want to use when we start ranking that, knowing that we have individuals on the team that are going to feel differently about different options, but we wanted to just, in terms of ranking, not use necessarily our personal preference, but try to use these guiding principles to say, we feel like as a committee, we'd like to bring forth recommendations to you to address those 3 problems of practice. So if you'll note, it kind of just separates as the 3 sentences within the problem of practice. We're looking for solutions that do address discrimination and harassment based on protected classes. We also wish to find solutions that address instances of discrimination and harassment that are not limited to protected groups. And then finally, we're looking at how do we better collect data, implement proactive measures. That word proactive has been used quite a bit in our committee meetings about we want to move past sort of reactive solutions or ways to address the issue and be more proactive, as well as continually monitor and improve. So it's taken us a while to get here, but I'm really so thankful for those 20 committee members that have hung with us the whole process and really gone through all the stages of digging into laws, policies, really trying to get to the hard part of getting consensus on that problem of practice, which we were able to land on. And just taking a lot of time outside of the meetings to do their own research, so. Do you have any feedback for me that I can take back to the committee at our next meeting?
So I know I've brought this up before, so it sounds like the committees, unless they gain momentum, it
Yes.
sounds like they're finally getting someplace.
Yes,
And now it's gonna be
I
something.
know, yes,
And we know there's an issue,
yeah.
and I'm just wondering, any idea of a timeline before we can start to see something? I just
Yeah.
think that we're getting momentum, and then we're not gonna do anything all summer, then
I
we kinda
know.
have to start over come fall.
Right,
And
well,
take something, and it's, you're talking 6 to 9 months, so realistically, probably away from
I hope not, but,
implementation. I don't know if you don't need it over the summer.
I
I'm
know,
just
yeah,
asking.
I mean, even if you look at the possible timeline that we had even at our initial, like, you know, we hope to be somewhere else by now, right? But it was also, we felt like if something deserved conversation, or any committee member said, I don't think we've finished this discussion, we've tried to honor that, if people wanted to slow down and, or learn more about something, right? So we've tried to give consideration that we don't want anyone to feel like something was rushed, right? So, there's that. We do have 2 meetings in May, so there's that. We did some initial dot polling, and I think we may have one summer date for us to consider. It does look like many of us have differing plans over the summer, so we're just gonna pick a date where the majority of us can meet over the summer, and then we'll be back into the swing of things when school's back in session.
Barbara, we'll say that Mandy tried to make it look as attractive as possible when she was trying to get people to sign up.
Well, the work is important.
Yeah.
Right.
And we've been talking, and we know we have issues. And
Yes.
we've been talking for what, 2 or 3 years now?
It's been a while, yeah.
It's been a while,
Mhm.
so.
Well,
We're looking for
we are equally, committed and eager to not make delays. We are trying to honor the process the best we can and get to the end goal, knowing that, there always would be a period of evaluating, is this a, so I hope to, continue to update you, and again, if you have feedback that you'd like me to bring back to the committee, I'd be happy to do that now or in the coming weeks. We'll meet again, the first week of May.
As someone who's attended the last several meetings, and I've said this a couple times publicly and to you personally, I believe the last couple of meetings have been very fruitful as far as the process of getting things done. So I would encourage them to continue using that same process. People are more engaged, and I've seen them in the past. Now, I'm very hopeful of the process that I've seen. I'm still gonna have some questions about some of the things that I am seeing when it comes to the board weighing in. And I've been very careful, in fact, Dr. Vanderjack encouraged me several meetings ago, just to listen and not give a lot of input, and I thought that was very wise advice, and I've done that, and because I don't wanna influence what these people are putting together and what they're thinking. However, so I don't want it to come as a surprise if I've got several questions that come up, even though I think that you're doing a very good job with the process. But I am gonna have several questions depending on what is presented to us, and that's what I'm waiting for, to get that presentation.
Yeah, I think if you do have questions about whatever the proposed recommendations are, obviously that would be great to
Right.
process those at that time.
Right.
If you had feedback for the committee in terms of the process or any of the forms that we have presented, that would be appreciated now.
Right, I understand,
Okay,
yes,
yes,
yes.
thank you.
So I'm looking at this example, so if I was a person on the committee, then
Yes.
at some point in time, I'm gonna say, okay, alignment to problem of practice.
Yep.
I would mark it X as to whether I think that's high, low, medium, that kind of thing.
Right,
And then you're gonna compile.
Yep.
And then from there, you're gonna say, all right, now as we move forward, these are the things we have to concentrate on as we're coming up with ideas or information to present to the board.
so this is a chart that would be used to rate each of the top solutions. So if I'm looking at a solution called restorative practices,
Yep.
I'm gonna take the information that I've received as a committee member, and I'm gonna score that solution according to these factors. And then we would have a total score for that, and then we would look to, average that or total
Yeah.
that, get a statistic from that, and so that we can rank order what our committee has found to be top rating.
So this will be used to rate each possible solution?
Yes.
Perfect, okay,
Yes.
now I get it, thank you.
Okay, yeah, for sure. Thank you for the question.
Yeah, I appreciate this grid here and yeah, at the last meeting, I was only able to be there for the first half, but
Mhm.
I thought the conversation was excellent.
Good.
A lot of engagement, and I walked away actually thinking of the word culture as we've been talking about a couple of the different things, and to me, to your point, we're reacting a lot historically, and if we can do some things to change some cultural issues,
Yeah.
maybe that's a more proactive approach. But
Mhm.
I'd love to see that
Good, yeah.
as one of the rubrics and prior success, and it was great dialogue, because the two proposals that I was listening on, there's staff that have used elements of both
Yes.
of those, so it was great to have them speak
Perspective.
up and share, so it was,
Mhm.
that was a great conversation, so thanks
Thanks.
for
Yeah.
leading that.
Mhm.
So you mentioned you had 5 potential solutions that you've already sort of ranked sort of highly. Can you give us like, not the
Yeah.
details, but just like overarching sort of what that universe
Yeah.
of solutions is looking like as you see it now, understanding you're still done?
Yeah, so we have we have a list of things that some are student facing. So one example of that is a collection of lessons that are developed from Jostens Renaissance program, and they come from a leadership program, and it talks about lessons that students would receive based on a variety of factors like empathy and addressing harm and things, conflict resolution. So there's student-based options like that. There's staff training options. So one of the options that was very new, but we reviewed initially, is a slide deck from the ISD that just talks about what are just what's a 5-step process a staff member may follow if they hear something derogatory or discriminatory in a student or classroom scenario. So, in a lot of the same ways that we have with Blue Envelope, we have a level 1 training where it's just like every teacher needs to have this training, and then you refer it to somebody else who can dive deeper and provide some education to those students, maybe lead a restorative conversation. But it was like basically trying to help teachers have a script of what do I say or do if I see something like this, or I hear that it's happened. And then we also have just bigger solutions that are talking about how do we build more community, how do we change like the language and the common values that we have as a community. And 2 options that we've discussed so far is one is loving our students on purpose, and that is something that it has more implementation in Australia than it does in the US. And another option that we've talked about is something called restorative circles, which is a training that's more local, and it talks a lot about helping build bridges in a classroom space so that when there is a sense of harm, you feel some responsibility to that community rather than just saying so actually those 2 programs have some parallels. We have talked about some of the challenges that we would have to figure out with any of these, one being time, right? Like when we have time for more lessons, or knowing that high school students do have 5 classes, what's the best classroom setting for those conversations to happen? So we've tried to stay away from implementation details and more think about these factors. Like, is it based on prior success? Does it have a contextual fit here in Hudsonville? Those kind of things.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
One of the things I think I can say, Mandy, is that over the last couple of meetings, I know, one of the PBIS specialists has voiced a concern about, the training and stuff like that, and the buy-in from all the teachers, and then one of the principals at the last meeting expressed the same thing, from the standpoint of, we got to train these people, time and all that kind of stuff. Those are some of the process things that I would be looking at, that I would want an answer to before we, pushed any one of the programs, but because that seems to be one of the underlying concerns of the leadership in the room, not the teachers, not the parents, but the PBIS and the principals. So
Yeah.
that's just one thing I think I can say that
Mm-hmm.
has caught my attention.
Yeah, I think, staff buy-in is something that we consider with any,
Right,
initiative for sure, and I think that, sometimes we could go down that implementation road so far that we don't move into the next option, so what we've tried to do is say, those are all important,
Mhm.
but it may not be, it may need to be a conversation where it is administrators having time to process
Yeah.
those things versus using the committee time around that. Not that those concerns aren't valid, it's just that what we're trying to do is have everyone's perspective on these as potential solutions.
Yeah, I think of the math presentation we had, if only it was that easy, because it's a totally different,
Yeah,
different subject, so anyway.
it
but
is, yeah,
That's just one thing.
yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Good work, Mary.
Thanks.
The journey is one of the outcomes.
Yeah.
So,
Thanks.
Next up, we have our Imagine Learning Grant.
Yeah, so in your packet, you just see basically a general overview. There isn't any action needed this evening or in the future. This is just kind of providing an overview of a grant that we have applied for and received licenses for access. So this is an online learning tool. However, if you kind of jump to the plan for use, specifically, we are tending to that idea of how much time are students spending utilizing instructional tech platforms such as this. We know that teachers are more valuable than any online learning platform that we could use. And so the goal really with the licenses, we purchased at this point, MDE and Imagine Learning is the name of the platform, have partnered together, and we have access to 9 building licenses for each of our elementary schools, and then the 5, 6 at Georgetown. And what we're specifically looking is to be able to provide opportunities for students who don't qualify for summer school, because there are some pretty tight, it's a pretty small box of students who qualify for summer school due to the particular funding. And so then being able to open up an offering for students over the summer to continue learning. There's certainly that summer learning gap that we try to tend to, as well as any potential of some just closing any gaps that might exist even going into summer, utilizing this tool. So just kind of informing of this large amount of money that is coming from MDE to support the purchase of these licenses. So this is a grant that we've applied for.
We don't know if we've received it yet.
We have received it.
We have received
Yes,
it.
we have received it, yes. And it's actually a very high functioning tool for our multilingual learners, and so we've been using it in small pockets, but looking at some summer opportunities for families who've expressed I want my child in summer school, and like I said, that box, because of funding, is kind of small for those who qualify, and this just provides that additional learning opportunity for students, and we'll continue to get feedback about what that looks like, so.
I'm overgeneralizing, but it's because of the volume of the grant and how it's shown and how the money is moved. That's why the board has discussion, if any, and then bring to the board for approval, but it's because of the amount of money that was changed.
Any questions on the Imagine Learning Grant?
So, the 5, 6 building students, just the 5th graders?
6th grade as well.
Oh.
Mhm.
So which one is it?
Oh, now you're making me second guess myself. It does say K-5, so I think you're probably right. Yeah, that is
Okay.
just for 5th
I
grade
just wondered
students.
how that, if it was gonna be 6th graders, how would we look at the data?
I think it's just.
It's just 5th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Moving on to our high school social studies courses.
So this is just kind of the next group of courses by way of reminder that we're trying to kind of create that baseline. As you can see, most of these courses do have prior approval dates, some of them dating back already all the way to 1979, which is kind of funny. But there are 3 courses that we would be adding formal approval date to at the May board meeting. and that would be AP, United States History, Government, and Current Events. Other than that, these all have dates that we were able to find, in board meeting minutes of formal approval from the board.
So like AP US history, is that not a standardized text anyway for purposes of doing AP? So in some respects, it's not really like we're approving a curriculum, we're just saying, yes, we're going to carry AP US history, and this is what they say we use.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but just to be clear, these are not textbook approvals, these are courses.
Oh,
So
sorry.
these are, and that's okay, but, because of, since we've been here since 2018, I think a lot of us, there were some courses that didn't have a board approval. Since we've been here, every course has been approved and it was gone through the board. But going back as far as we could, we're like, we can't find dates on some of these. So we wanted to do a one date on all of them, but there's a lot. So we did elementary months ago, then we just did middle school, now we're working through the content areas of it. And these are simply for courses. Textbooks are a whole different ballgame when it comes to approval. And these courses have been around for generations.
Yes.
We just don't have, they probably all go well back before 1979.
Thanks for clarifying that.
Yeah, sorry.
There's three, it's gonna find it.
Correct? Yeah. So we'd like to get it so that moving forward, every course truly has a board approval date. We're missing 3 for social studies. We won't change the rest of the dates, but we would have, those 3 would then have
Updated.
Current date.
May of 2024.
Any other questions on the high school social study courses? Okay, moving on to board goals. I added this to the agenda because I just wanted to have a discussion about board goals and really either to do something or to not do something. So, and I just want to open it up for discussion. I've had the opportunity to serve on other boards, and I've never been on a board where the board has had goals. So I personally don't feel that it's necessarily appropriate for the board to have goals. I think it's certainly okay if individual board members have goals. For example, you might want to attend a conference or a training session. But I don't think as a board, overall, it's appropriate to have goals. We have a code of conduct which we've approved. So I just want to open this up for discussion, because either we're going to develop some goals or we're going to be done with this conversation. So, everyone knows how I feel?
I'm on that same line of thinking, been on a number of boards, and the boards, of course, have things they want to accomplish, but those are all facilitated through the administration which we hire and the staff we hire. So I think that if you looked at the SOAR goals, that would be really the extension of our goals. I don't feel that I have any need for any more goals beyond that.
Are you okay if I just go around the
That's
table
fine.
and ask, so we have?
Yeah, I think, sorry, were you coming to me?
Yeah, if you're okay with that.
Yes, sure. I think it's important to remember why we started the discussion in the first place, and that's because the SOAR data say that 50% of the community thinks we're doing a good job, 26% of the community thinks our board leadership is doing a good job. So we're here to identify how we can do better, right? So I like goals. I think it's important to remember why we started the conversation in the first place, and what they are. I don't know. I still think we're working through that. But I think if we have a few goals, it's probably not a bad idea.
So I'm just gonna keep track of who's for and who's, it'll just be easier.
Yeah. And I spent some time between our last work session and today, just looking back at the SOAR data and the verbatim comments, and it stung the third time I read them as much as it did the first and second time. So if we sit here and say we're not gonna have goals, what does that say to the people who had that feedback?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of goals either. And I don't think it's a rebuke or anything or a pushback on any of the comments people made. I just don't think we need goals, that's the thing.
Yeah, I sent over some thoughts to you. My initial thing is, yeah, we should do goals, but I kept going back to, they really need to support SOAR initiatives, because that's our directive, and drive student achievement. That's kind of, we have directives to Mark's point as a board. So the goals that I came up with are probably more at an individual level, which we've talked about, which would be, more, we've talked about conferences you've attended in the past, which I think could be valuable. I think it was Ken or Mark mentioned, maybe it was you actually, who said, when we've gone in the past, you're like, actually, historically, we've done a pretty good job compared to most districts. So I don't know what we learned, but I'm always open to, maybe there's something we can learn from a regional or a national conference. Again, would the whole board have to go? I don't know. And then I found the MASD trainings very helpful, the 100-level courses. You know, maybe that's more of an individual goal though for new members. The verbatim comments in SOAR, I mean, if we get an opportunity twice a month to come in here and do our jobs, and people can watch and see how we're doing them. Hopefully we're doing better than we were when those surveys were filled out 14, 15 months ago. And I'd like to think that, yeah, we get the opportunity to have people change their minds or be reconfirmed their thoughts going forward. And we've all talked about the progress we're making as a team here over time. So hopefully the community sees that, staff sees that as well.
I think I would be on the same page with Andrew. I do think, again, you can decide whether you would like to say the word perception or not. When this started out, and I was on the committee that looked at that data, it was very clear that there was an expectation that as a board, we figured things out. And I think to some degree we've done that. But when we were looking at approving SOAR 5, we had talked about including in SOAR 5 something about the board. And at that time, the decision was made, well, it's not included on SOAR 5, that's something the board has to work on and we will create our own goals. I have some concern about now saying we don't think that's necessary. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah, as Andrew mentioned, we went through the process based on the feedback from the SOAR activity, and through various meetings and discussions, we said, well, maybe the board needs some goals. I would encourage maybe some thought around, maybe it's not just this board, but think about boards in the future, 2, 3, 4, 5 years out. An example of a goal that may be pertinent to a board, perhaps this board, perhaps others, would be all CB 100 level, CBA 100 level classes are completed within 2 years or something like that. So you can also set up goals, again, not just for a particular instance and situation, but more broadly as we go into the future. I'm not going to get hung up on, well, we have to have goals. I think there's some personal goals that can be set based on the conversations that we've had. And personally, I would spend probably a little bit more time, and I recall at the last meeting, we were gonna kind of give some input and then summarize some potential goals and come in and talk about it. So, but be that as it may, I would be in favor of maybe a little bit more thought around goals, 1, 2, 3. But it's not something that, at the end of the day, we all as board members have to go, okay, how am I performing in my role to be the most effective board member that I can be? And support the and support the district. So, those are my thoughts.
I have not received any feedback from any board members regarding goals. After we've had the conversations with people to think about it, send me ideas, I've not received anything. So.
You asked for that at the last one, so that, you know, it's kind of, you know, do my thoughts or your last request.
I mean, obviously I'll support whatever decision we decide on here. I just, my struggle is, we've heard the community, we've heard what they've said about our performance as a board. And I think collectively, a lot of us on the board have looked to Doug to say, hey Doug, help us fix this relationship with the teachers. Help us fix this relationship with the community. And Doug's like, in so many words, I'm gonna, forgive me if I put words in your mouth, it's like, well, you gotta figure that out yourselves. So here we have an opportunity to help figure that out ourselves. And maybe we have a goal about that, maybe we don't, but if we don't, like, again, what does that show the people who have spent a lot of time expressing experiencing the dissatisfaction with how it's performing. So again, I'm not gonna,
Here's where I got hung
Yeah.
up, when I put the email to you, so like, again, we talked about the CBA 101 for new members. Would that be a code of conduct thing though, or is that where's the line on if we're gonna make a goal, like, cause you and I both on it. Is that code of conduct or a goal?
Well, I wanna loop back and pick up on, again, what Andrew said, because, and I think we've heard a little bit of it in this meeting. Hey, Doug, fix the board, community, the board staff relationship. It's not Doug's job to do. The board staff relationship issues reside with the board. And so I think, that's a really important point. Now, again, I'm with you that if we walk out of here and we go, no, we're not gonna set goals, and so be it, but that's a crux of what we're dealing with here.
if someone were to
Right,
ask
as
me,
a board.
what is the board doing about the poor feedback they received? My answer right now would be, well, we're trying to do a better job communicating, we're trying to do a better job working together, we're trying to be more transparent. Okay, how, right? And I think all of us would probably say something a little differently. I think by having goals and having a vision for this group allows us to answer that question in a way that I think our community expects us to.
So if someone were to ask me that question, I would say we've actually done quite a bit. We've had a board assessment completed. We've paid to have the MASB consultant come in to talk to us. We have requested where board members what meetings we can attend, being able to formally go into schools so that we are much more visible. So I actually think we've done quite a bit.
We've done a lot, but what are the outcomes? Like the self-evaluation that we did, what was the outcome of that? Right, we had, someone came back and said, should we do a DIS assessment? And we all decided no, like, okay. So we spent 3 hours in a room with the guy, we had a 5-minute conversation about the outcome, and then we haven't done anything. I don't think we did it, like, I don't think that was productive at all, to be honest with you. Like, I think there's more that we should be doing, I think our community expects us to be doing more too.
The data's old and a lot has happened in that time, so.
And that's true, but I don't think, I wouldn't want that to be the reason for saying we no longer need to worry about it, cause it's been almost a year. I think one of the things we have done that we had talked about way back in September, when I started with all of the things that I compiled from the comments, was to go over the code of conduct. So in some respects, informally, that was one of our goals, and I think we've accomplished that. But I do think if that is the only thing we have done, and don't go a step further, I think we've done a disservice to the process and what we suggested we might do back in September.
If I could just offer a suggestion.
Absolutely.
Those who feel strongly about this, why don't you write down specific goals that you think would be appropriate? It's hard for me to deal with nebulous conversations out here, but if the 3 of you or 4 of you, whatever, but just write down on a piece of paper, send it to Barb and the entire board, what you think we should do as goals. And then bring those back here and we can have a concise discussion about whether those fit. I have the same concerns that some of you have, but I want to have a goal that will address that in a meaningful way. I think that would get us off the dime here.
I
Move us in.
agree with you totally, and that was gonna be my recommendation,
I'm
that those
sorry.
individuals who feel strongly about this, if you can maybe send me your goals and in a concise format. I'd actually like to have them in a smart format if possible. And we can put it on the next agenda and we either move forward or we sunset it, one of the two. But for those that feel strongly, send me what you want.
Just one more comment and then I'll be done. I find it very ironic that the people at this table who have the hardest time navigating relationships with teachers don't wanna spend some time putting some goals together.
I share that sentiment. I think
It's so,
all board members.
the irony is
All
like,
board members should put some.
Wait, who has trouble navigating relationships with teachers here?
I think one of the goals that you had for Dr. Vanderjack was for him to help us navigate relationships with teachers.
I'm back to my original question. Who here has trouble with relationship with teachers?
Do you have trouble with relationships with teachers? Okay.
Do teachers have trouble in a relationship with you?
And I've invited them to talk with me at any time. I've encouraged Doug to be a liaison to bring us together. I don't have any problem with it at all.
I mean, Andrew, I kind of feel the same way. People might not agree with me, but I had reached out and said, I'll talk to anybody at any time. And I've had people say, no, they wanna follow this code and this code. And that's fine. I don't do it anymore. I don't badger them or anything like that. But the fact of the matter is that I'm willing to talk to the teachers, and several have taken me up on it and talked with them. So another thing is I don't believe that we need goals to satisfy remarks on the source survey. That is not a reason for me to have a goal.
Not remarks, but
Yeah,
and the
whatever.
data, just
Yeah.
like we have the goals on the
Yeah,
wall, those all
yeah,
stem from the survey too.
I'd be more than willing to have conversations with people on that. I think that one of the things that Ken said, from the perspective of, the learning tools and stuff that we can use, I think that, that's a very good recommendation. And also, I think one of the things that, in fact, I was one of the people who asked Dr. Vanderjack to include in his goals, trying to make it better between the staff and the board. I'm not randomly saying that to Dr. Vanderjack, and I'm not saying to Dr. Vanderjack all encompassing. I have specific items which I would like Dr. Vanderjack, and I think that he would be a key player in that role. And I had started to give some of those, and the board didn't want to hear him, so I respectfully stopped. So I'm not saying that Dr. Vanderjack is in a position where he should take care of this, and this just because there's a problem. What I'm saying is, I believe there are situations where he is the solution, and I would more than be happy to more than develop that reasoning for that. And so, sure, there are certain situations where he has nothing to do with it, but there are other situations where I believe that he has a critical role in that, and I would be more than happy to articulate those and the reasons why I believe that to be the case. So it's not just a generic throw it out there and say, you do this. It's, these are the reasons why I feel. These are the examples that I have where you could be a good conduit for what's going on. And I've had those conversations with Dr. Vanderjack also.
So I would ask to move forward, that those individuals that would like goals, send me examples of the goals in a SMART format. My personal opinion would be that they would align with the SOAR goals and align with the board's responsibilities.
And I would respectfully challenge back that all board members, all of us should take a few moments, should reflect on the outcomes of the SOAR. I do think there are gaps in teacher and board, staff and board relationships. And I think it's healthy for all of us to step back and even challenge yourself and say, I'm gonna come up with one. Now, maybe we as a board like it, we don't, but I think there's a benefit in all of us as a board stepping up and saying, we're all gonna do this together. Again, you come up with goals, you don't, we're promoting the very division on the board that we want to try and break down. So let's challenge
So,
all of us.
I'll go back
To achieve
again
that.
to having served on other boards.
And I've been served on many boards
That is
too.
not the norm, and
But this has not been a normal scenario either.
This was not that.
We can't
so
just.
we're not gonna continue. So if everyone wants to feel free to send me your goals. If you
No.
wanna send me a goal, send me a goal. If you don't, you don't. We'll bring back what I receive at the next meeting and we can go from there. Cause we can go back and forth all night long and
I
people
would
either gonna
respectfully
submit
like to
goals or
point
they're
out
not gonna submit
from my
goals.
notes on September 18, goals, we had 3 of them that we briefly talked about, and that's what I think we need to think about going back to. What do we expect out of our board members from an MESB class? Review the code of conduct, and then either a staff survey or some sort of attempt to reach out to better understand why there seems to be a gap.
So please send those to me, that's all that I ask.
And I'm just saying, they were there.
Please send them to me, and then we'll have it
And
on
you'll
the
have to,
next agenda.
I don't know the format for SMART goals. I must not be in the right business. But
Okay,
if you could please let
I
me know
will.
what you intend by that.
okay,
Oh, then I'll come.
I'll send you a format.
That's what we had when we went over the valuation of the
Yeah,
smart, okay.
yeah, we do everything in smart format at work, so, okay, all right. Next up, we have closed session, so we're gonna go into closed session. Dr. David Jeff, would you like to say anything before we go into closed session?
I'll say this when we get back.
How long do you think we'll be in closed session, any idea, for those that are here waiting?
27 minutes. Oh.
That's, I like it. 27 sounds.
All right, so we don't.
Sorry.
All right, so, I need a motion to go into closed session.
I'll do that.
We have a movement from Nick with support
I'll
from
support.
Mark.
Mhm.
All right, Ken?
Yes.
John?
Yes.
Dick? Or, yes?
Yes.
Sandy?
Yes.
Okay, we are in closed session.